Good evening and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, coming to you live from beautiful Cape May, New Jersey, which is actually not beautiful Cape May, New Jersey today. It is dreary and rainy today and only 70 degrees. Not a good day to be at the beach, but nonetheless, I'm coming to you live via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio today. My guest today, I'm very excited to have back on the show, Major Scott Huesing, best-selling author of Echo and Ramadi. And last time he was on the show, we talked about the book, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more today. But we're going to focus on Save the Brave today and any other topics or questions or things anyone wants to talk about today. Very excited to have him back on the show today. And I apologize if my voice quality is not awesome, but that's the results of having a really good weekend. That's what that's what happens. I was using my voice a lot over the weekend. So, but happy Monday to all of you out there. Happy Monday to everyone in the Facey chat. Welcome. Let's see. Before we get into the news, just a little bit of housekeeping. Let's see what. I told some of you guys on Friday, and I figured it was worth repeating, why I have been so busy, and the live shows have been a tad on the sporadic side, because I've been working on a couple of things. As much background as I have in finance, I wasn't a professional, a finance professional, if you will, like a licensed professional. So now I am. I was working on getting that done, and now it's done. So if you want any help from the business diva herself, feel free to give me a call. If you want a free consultation, it's like 20 minutes. It can be done via Skype, Google Hangout, whatever. Or if you're in the DMV or the New Jersey area, I can meet you in person. Just give me a shout at 937-756-6639, or you can always email me at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Also, if you're not doing so, I always forget to mention this. You should follow me on Twitter at moneytalkmel. And if you really, really want to punish yourself and follow all the evil banter that goes on with a brown conservative, you can follow me. You can follow me at NJGOP Diva. Which is my personal Twitter handle. You can certainly follow me there. Okay, something is very weird. Okay, here we go. I was going to say something weird is going on with my Facebook Live, because I can see people like saying stuff, but they're not coming up. Like, it's still saying like only one person's there, but I can clearly see people's names. It's bizarre. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So if I'm not giving you a shout out, that is why, because I can't see your names. And it only says, like, I can see names pop up occasionally, but I can't see like a list coming up. It's kind of weird. But anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that. If you want to know why I'm not giving you a shout out, that's why, because I can't see the names clearly for some reason. The other thing that's going on is I have been helping out with a book. I was asked to write the foreword to a book called, let's see, I want to make sure I get this right, called Miraculous Identity by Linda Brightman. And she's going to be on the show on August 30th to tell the audience all about that. But I'm really excited. It's a fantastic book. It's all about your relationship, basically how your identity with God is different than your identity to the rest of the world. It's completely different. And basically how you can hone in on that. It comes with a workbook. It's pretty cool. So I'm excited about that. And I was really quite flattered to be asked to write the foreword to that book after, getting a preview of the book. So it was really exciting, and I didn't want to mess it up. So I took my time to do that and do the edits, and it should be coming out pretty soon. But I'll let you guys know. And like I said, the author will be on the show on August 13th. On Wednesday, tomorrow is going to be a re-air, because I believe I'm in the DMV tomorrow doing something. I think I have a meeting in the DMV tomorrow, Wednesday. So tomorrow's a re-air. I think it's like early Wednesday. That's why tomorrow's a re-air. Wednesday, though, we have back our favorite cyber guy who's probably going to scare us to death about whatever is going on in cyberspace lately. I saw a post, and I haven't had a chance to investigate this yet, that LifeLock had a breach. And I didn't hear a whole lot about that on the national news either. But if anybody will know, Mike Fitzpatrick will know, the founder and CEO of NCX Group and cybersecurity expert. But usually, I'll tell you, he usually has something like way better. Whenever we discuss what is it we're going to talk about on the show, he usually has something like, way more clandestine that the government is up to, or that some other hacker or whatever is up to. So we'll see. I'll let you know on Wednesday exactly what it is that he and I are going to chat about. But knowing Mike, it will be something good. So I'm excited about that. I think I have my Friday guest nailed down. I think Thursday's going to be a re-air because I have some kind of meeting. Oh, Scott, very nice of you to say. I just saw you. I did see that comment. What's in the news today? Nothing going. The good thing about having President Trump is that a news day is never boring. How about that? Just never, ever, ever. According to the Wall Street Journal, it's a great time to get a job. Employers are becoming less picky. So all you slackers out there, no, I'm kidding. No, but apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, employers are becoming less picky, and they're not having as many skill and degree requirements. I'm so glad I spent all that money to attract a larger pool of candidates. And this is especially true in low unemployment cities like Dallas or Louisville. Apparently, there's an extra 1 million jobs opened up last year with no experience necessary. Okay, I do want to know the deets behind that. Like, what kind of jobs are they? Just saying. Just saying. Oh, interesting. In California, in lovely California, in a departure from a federal standard, California Supreme Court ruled that companies must pay hourly workers for off-the-clock tasks. Really? Okay, I'm not even going to. Well, I mean, but if they're off-the-clock tasks, that's the definition of an off-the-clock task. It's an off-the-clock task. Like, that's the deal when you sign up, just like salary jobs. I mean, there's some stuff that's an off-the-clock task. I'm just saying. No one likes off-the-clock tasks, but that's what they are. Okay, whatever. Those kind of, anybody who has an hourly job or recalls what it was like to have an hourly job, and you have some of those things that you can't do while you're on the clock, but it's kind of related to your job. Now you have to get paid for that. Okay, whatever, California. Whatever. Oh, Walmart ended its last mile employee delivery program. This was this program where they had employers who were like leaving their regular shifts. They could drop stuff off and I guess get paid extra. It was like this delivery service. They did it as kind of a beta pilot program, and they decided to end it. Now, this is my favorite news item, because this is on my bucket list to see. I like never go to the movies, but I love Mission Impossible. Not necessarily a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I mean, he's okay, I guess. Yeah, he's cute. But I had to evaluate my Tom Cruise crush, but he's all right. But Mission Impossible Fallout opened with a new high for the franchise, bringing in $61.5 million. You go, Tom. That's in the U.S. and Canada, so good for him. Good for Tom Cruise. And that's all for your Money Talk news. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is the one and only Major Scott Huesing. Very excited to have him on the show. Best-selling author of the book Echo and Ramadi and Echo Group Consulting. Excited to have him on the show. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay. Why am I hearing sound?
Hey, you hear me?
Yeah. Wait a second. Oh, here we go.
I know God created all men equal, but some individuals make you wonder if all they do is sit on their brains. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, recently, former New England Patriots tight end Martellus Bennett accused President Trump of attacking black culture. As an American who happens to be black, I always thought that all who are born in this republic are Americans, with different approaches maybe, but still Americans. I'm really trying to figure out exactly what black culture Martellus Bennett is referring to, because the only thing he could enumerate in regards to his interpretation of black culture is NFL players kneeling during the national anthem, which didn't sit too well with most Americans and President Trump, who simply wanted to enjoy football games without watching highly paid football players grumble about how hard it is to be in old racist America. So is Bennett calling kneeling at football games black culture? Or is hating this country, no matter how blessed one is, black culture? Is supporting open borders and illegal border crossers black culture? I just want to know. In the meantime, I'll continue doing my part to make our American culture great again. I'm Ron Edwards. Join me Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on AmericaMatters.us, XHR Media, and Sunday midnights on Talk America Radio.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit TaxMama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. That's TaxMama.com.
And we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, and my guest today is one and only Mr. Scott Huesing. He is a retired United States Marine Corps infantry major. That's just impressive in and of itself. Like, we could just leave it right there. But anyway, with 24 years of honorable service, both enlisted and as a commissioned officer. During his career spanning 10 deployments, he operated in over 60 countries worldwide. Throughout his numerous deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Horn of Africa, he planned, led, and conducted hundreds of combat missions under some of the most austere and challenging conditions. He's a published author since 2005. His best-selling book, Echo and Ramadi, is a snapshot in time that changed the face of operations in the battlefield. It's a captivating story of Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines during the Second Battle of Ramadi in support of the multinational forces surge strategy in 2006. It's a true life account that provides keen insights into what may be unfamiliar world to readers, but very familiar to those like Scott, who lived and endured this historic fight. Echo Ramadi was written to honor the sacrifices and spirit of his Marines and the families they supported. It's a tribute to them and his honor to tell this great story. And without further ado, the one and only Mr. Scott Huesing. How are you, dear?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me back on.
I'm fantastic. I just love that entire thing. I know we're talking about Save the Brave today, but if you guys missed the replay of Scott on the show talking about Echo and Ramadi, just fantastic. You really should go back and download the podcast. Just fantastic. Men like you on the planet, I am just in awe of. I'm just saying. At the risk of sounding like I'm sucking up.
I appreciate it.
But
last time we were talking, I think probably one of the biggest responses I got, whether it was online or otherwise, was, why have this former Marine or author on a business show? And I think the best answer I give any listeners is that because I was in the Marines and I transitioned to the private sector, whether you're in the military or you're civilian in the private sector, it's a people business, especially being in the military. And that's the tenet of leadership. And that's one of the things I talk about. I don't just talk to military groups. I talk to private sector companies, and leadership is leadership. And one of the things I'm quoted on most often is there's no such thing as combat leadership, just leadership. Leaders lead in any condition. And I think that's really applicable to any business model that your listeners are operating, or anybody that wants to thrive as an entrepreneur, like I did when I transitioned from the private sector after my retirement. I had to take on this one, a massive pay cut to one, write a book and hope that it would do well. And it has, thanks to support from people like you and so many others that have gotten behind and love this story that's really about people. But to use that leadership philosophy and that model is something that I think really ties us together. And that does have to do with business, because everything I do, and it was funny listening to the news comments because I'm in Southern California, and if I had to pay myself for off-the-clock tasks, like my clock is always running. So
Right.
if I was paying myself, I'd probably go broke because my phone's always on, I'm always answering emails, I'm always signing books, I'm always doing something to create opportunities for myself and to help veterans. And, that's where, I'm very fortunate to be tied into not only great media programs like yours that share these stories of our nation's heroes, but it really creates other opportunities for me to volunteer and serve our veteran community, which we really owe any success in the private sector and industry too, as they provide security and stability, not only abroad, but here within our own country.
For sure. And actually, I had to kind of giggle to myself when you were saying what you were saying about creating opportunities and always doing things. I believe you and I met at CPAC, maybe not this past year, but maybe this past year even.
This year, yeah. This year. We've only known each other a short while, but there's like chemistry and a connection.
Absolutely. As I was about to say, because I feel like I've known you for a minute, for a while, but that was just this year. But I was explaining to someone, because I guess people see you at these events and they see you with, there's a lot of photo ops and stuff like that. And people say it must be a lot of fun. And I'm not saying that it isn't, because it is, but you're working. I mean, when you're there, you're working, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's interesting. I was just talking to this with a friend yesterday about how most people don't understand that. And I never believed it when I heard public figures or celebrities say in an interview, "Oh, I haven't seen myself in that movie." But you do so much engagement and so many events. It really is work. And if you stop to watch or listen to every single interview that you did, you'd never get anything done. And that's just kind of the reality of being in, I guess, the entertainment industry. And a lot of authors don't want to kind of embrace that and don't really view themselves as entertainers. But you're a storyteller, and you're people don't buy books or download Audible to be bored. They buy stuff to be entertained, and that's what we do. My story, although it's my story and the story of my Marines, is something you still have a responsibility to entertain people, and it is very time consuming, and you're always on, and somebody always wants a little bit of your time and a photo op or something. And it is fun. I'm not going to say it's not,
right? But
really, what's great about it is the connections you make and those future opportunities. It's really phenomenal.
It is. It's definitely a lot of fun, and I don't discount that. But when people are like, "So, how much fun did you have? Why are you tired?" I'm like, "It's because it's exhausting, and you're literally you're working the entire time. Like, you have goals and you have things that you're doing." And I want to remind the audience too that this is, and you can, next time someone says something about you being on the show, you can also remind them that my show is not only about business, but it also talks about how business, how public policy affects business and things like that. And certainly our military and our defense being one of the biggest parts of our budget affects everything else. So, I would make the argument that certainly you as a guest fits right in. It's a humongous budget, and much of it, quite frankly, secret. Much of what you did, how it got paid for, is not public information. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I do feel completely comfortable talking to any audience about my experiences and how they tie into the bigger picture. And I was just on a show before yours, and we started kind of talking about the situation in the Middle East and how the decisions that the current administration is making impact those, and are we making a difference? And one of the questions was, is the military the machine that's best suited to address those problems in that region? And my answer is no. I think that we do a lot of things right. I mean, we're absolutely great at blowing stuff up and breaking stuff up, but we're not so great or trained to build stuff up. And when we talk about that region or what's going on here in the continental United States, our industrial and political machines are really the ones that have to lead the way. And that does have second and third order effects on the budget, the economy, our taxes, and everything that plays in that. Either people who are employed by big companies or entrepreneurs, anybody that pays taxes, that's going to have an impact on you. And if you stick your head in the sand and you think that those things aren't happening in the world, and that the military projecting its power forward across every ocean and every continent, that doesn't have an importance on how we do business here, I think you're going to be in the dark for a long time.
Oh, it certainly does. And anybody who pays attention to the stock market realizes that. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't pay attention to the stock. A lot of people don't pay attention to the stock market. They have no idea, what it means. They don't even look at their own 401k statements. And even if they do, they don't know what it means. They only know what the dollar amount means. They don't know what the fees, like they just don't. People live in a lot of ignorance, which is part of the purpose for my show, is for people to understand the marriage of all of those things and how they really all do work in tandem.
Well, I think the first step, if you're not looking at your statements or going online and checking that like you do your checking account,
right,
the first point is to tune into you and check your show out so they can know what to do and where to look. I think that's a great step forward to making sure they're listening to Money Talk and they get these little pearls. I've even gotten pearls from you, and I look at your page and I'm like, should I really cancel my cable? I don't know. My daughter would probably, beat me with a bat in my sleep if I did. It's one of your top three, I think, like cancel cable. So.
Let me tell you, my mom did a long time ago. I bought her, she said she wanted Roku one year, and I bought her Roku for Christmas, and ever since she's been done. She loves her Roku. And I mean, it's been like 3 years, and she still talks about how it was like the best Christmas gift I ever got her. And she gets some pretty nice gifts. So that was probably economically, that's probably on the lower side cost wise. So
well, that's a great gift.
Yeah, she loves it. She absolutely loves it. So I don't know, and I know quite a few people who have cut their cable, and come on, it's a ripoff, and they have like territorial monopolies, and they know it.
It's horrible. And we were talking before the show about, I live in wine country in Southern California, and if I had decent Wi-Fi service out here, I think I would have, dropped the hammer on it a long time ago. But I'm kind of hamstrung. But you're right. Yeah, it's and when you save and you invest in yourself and your family and your property, whatever it is, I suffer from that too. And a lot of people who come out, whether it's a vendor coming on my property and that, everything's $1,000, $1,000 for this. And I say, no, get out of here. I wind up doing it myself because I think fiscally, like, the reason I'm successful, the reason I have this is because I don't give my money away to people like that. And you're right. I feel like I'm being hamstrung by, cable, but yeah, you're right.
They are
absolutely right.
No, they certainly are. And thank you for the shout out. I appreciate it. No, so let's talk a little bit about Save the Brave, shall we?
Yes.
So Save the Brave is a nonprofit. What is its function? What is its goal?
Well, the history of Save the Brave was started by one of my young Marines who I fought alongside in Ramadi. He was a young machine gunner. And in 2015, he reached out to me, his former commanding officer, and said, hey, sir, we'd really love it if you'd provide your leadership and help us move forward in the right direction. And since that time, I did, and we've been moving and growing at the right rate with our nonprofit, helping hundreds of veterans each year. And we continue to grow through donations and support and people donating services. I mean, you in and of yourself, just helping share the story of Save the Brave is really important because it gets that message out there. And there's a lot of great nonprofits. One of the things that makes us unique at Save the Brave is none of us on the board take a single dime. We do it all for free. So the hours I put in during the day or during the week dedicated to building the website, getting donors, promoting events, all those things we do 100% free. So all the profits from any donors, anyone that supports, all of that goes to help veterans, whether it's a deep sea fishing trip on the Channel Islands or going up to the mountains, you name it. But getting veterans together and connecting veterans through outreach programs is what we do best. And that's based off of the model that we feel that getting these veterans together who have served under some of the toughest conditions, who are dealing with the effects of post-traumatic stress in a safe environment, is really kind of the magic to helping enable their healing, where there's no pill or vaccination that the VA can give these veterans to help them heal. And this is validated not because I have a PhD on my wall. I don't. We have one of those on the team, but when we get emails and stories from veterans saying how impactful it was and how important it was to be connected and be able to share their story, and they've never done it before after leaving the battlefield 10 years ago, that is really powerful. That's something, again, where as a leader and understanding that it's a people business, that power of human connection is so important. And it really is important to me because I know that my leadership, again, it didn't stop when I left the deadly streets of Ramadi. It didn't stop when I left the Marine Corps. I still feel an obligation and an honor to lead my Marines and lead veterans today to help them in whatever they want to do, whether it's dealing with PTS or whether it's transitioning into the private sector or starting their own business or writing their own book. I get a bunch of emails about that, like, how do I do this? And my answer is always Google. So that's how I figured it out. And having mentors and people guide you along the way is really important. And Save the Brave is just another great nonprofit that is an enabler for a lot of young veterans. And we're just really lucky to have a great network of support that helps foster our mission.
I really want to know, I noticed, and I think President Bush was responsible for this, if I recall correctly, that they dropped the D in PTSD. It used to be PTSD, and they purposely, for, I believe, messaging purposes, changed it from PTSD to PTS, post-traumatic stress disorder, to just post-traumatic stress.
Well, I don't know if I won't give President Bush credit for that.
No,
but I think the community of veterans that were dealing with some of it said, "Hey, enough's enough. This is not a disorder. We did not ask for this." And I always quote a good friend of mine who's an active duty Marine. His name's Charles Walker, and he wrote a great article called Post-Combat Residue, where he likens the effects of post-traumatic stress to that of a coffee mug that he used to have sitting on his desk, and a young Marine walks in and says, "Hey, Gunny, that mug is stained. It's a residue. Why don't you wash that?" And he says, "It doesn't matter how often I wash this thing. That residue, that stain from its daily use for its intended purpose will never go away. But it doesn't make that mug any less useful. It still gets me my coffee every day, and I'm not going to just throw it away. It's still a useful, tool." And I don't want to liken, service members to tools, but it's such a phenomenal analogy. He did a great job. And, that's one of the things is this is not a disorder. This is post-combat residue. If there was ever a resume builder, Mel, that veterans or first responders should claim, it's post-traumatic stress, but it's how you grow from that and how you survive those little pieces of trauma that you're forced to experience by your job description. That's what makes these veterans and these first responders great and even more capable when they transition to the private sector to deal with stress. Because let's face it, when I was in the private sector, they say, "Man, how do you stay so calm with everything going on? And you always seem so unflappable." I said, "Well, no one's bleeding." And that's the perspective that a lot of people just don't have.
I have an ex-boyfriend who was in, I forget which war, but he's a veteran. And I used to wonder why certain things would, and he's a cop now, he's getting ready to retire. But I used to wonder why certain things didn't stress him out. And I remembered that he had been at war, and talking to him about, whether, days when he wasn't sure if he was coming back. And I was like, well, considering the amount of stress that he's been under, this is probably not a big deal.
It's true. It's so true. And, conversely, though, there's probably things that were minuscule in other people's opinions that really bother him, like standing in line or someone bumping into him or traffic or, all these agitators that, some people who've been under those high stress situations don't deal with well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, so to speak. But
Right.
You're right. It's all based on perspective and the lens at which you look at things and how you apply those experiences. And again, making the best of them and viewing yourself as a survivor and somebody that's going to continue with the mission in life or in business and succeed, because that's what we're trained to do in the military. And I think that's really a vital message to any veteran listening or to a veteran employer, is to understand that that's how you leverage these guys, is to continue to challenge them, to continue to let them operate outside the box, and you're going to get so much in return. It's really, really amazing.
And the thing is, and you have to realize when you're talking to these guys, you don't realize that, I guess, when you guys are in the midst of what you're doing, you become somewhat desensitized when you're talking about it, because we would be having conversations and he would say, yeah, well, at one point I was walking around and all you could see is like burned body. And he said it like burned bodies, but he said it very matter of factly. And to someone who's never seen, like I'm 47 years old. I've never seen a dead body ever. Thank God. And, except for like at a funeral, obviously, but I mean, like not like matter of factly. And for him to say that, like I would just visualize that. And for him to say it so casually, I was just kind of like, okay. But it wasn't cold and callous. He was just telling a story. And actually, the story wasn't even about that. It was just kind of like adding detail to the situation. It wasn't even about that. He was just describing it. And I'm just like, okay, so that was just like Tuesday because you were in the middle of a war. So, wow. And I'm like, how do you come back and be normal? Fortunately, this particular person journals. So I think that's how I got through it. But I cannot imagine what you guys do and then come back, normal after and having to do what you do.
It is. You kind of have to redefine what normal is when you've been exposed to that type of environment for a sustained period. And that's not an easy adjustment for some people. And again, some people deal with those, the things they see and do and those small pieces of trauma they accumulate. And what's interesting is, again, the Marines that fought under my command, they were doing it normally at the age of 18, 19 years old. And how I dealt with those pieces of trauma that I accumulated and seeing those things. And then also having to be responsible for so many, hundreds of Marines and soldiers was quite different, because when you're 18 or 19, let's face it, they didn't have the life experience to go off of that a 35-year-old captain at the time did, with multiple combat deployments and a lot of life experience. And that's something I think that really took me a while to figure out. Maybe it took me writing Echo and Ramadi and doing all the interviews to really kind of step back and say, man, what I was asking these guys to do, these superhuman acts, again, were, it was a lot to process. But there's so many great success stories that have come out of that when I see not only the Marines I fought with doing great things in business, like Nick Vallette. He's a successful businessman now. He's got 2 restaurants in Southern California called Bastards American Canteen.
I saw that.
One is up in Downey, California. He's about to open a second one in Temecula, California. So it's another great success story. And there's hundreds that are known personally to me, and then there's one that when I see people send me emails or instant messages and share their stories after reading the book about how it reminded them of what they've been through and where they got to now. It's really cool.
Oh my goodness, that's true. I'm looking at the comments in the Facebook chat. I don't know if you can see them all. Somebody said, James said at 18 and 19, we're fearless. And when I was thinking about what you were saying, I mean, I teach high school and college. So, I'm looking at 18 and 19 and I'm thinking they're children. I'm like, they're babies to me. I'm like, you're taking these babies and asking them to do like man stuff. My nephew is 17. I can't imagine. I have another nephew who's 22.
It really is amazing to understand like how young this segment of the American culture is that raise their hand and volunteer to serve our nation's military. They're less than 0.5% of the entire American population. And that to me is staggering. I mean, I was one of those guys when I was enlisted, and I guess, again, through age and wisdom and experience, you kind of step back and realize, and you gain a better appreciation for the sacrifices they make. And are they ready to lead when they transition from the military to the private sector? Absolutely. Were they not ready to just go from college or high school into the private sector before? No. But there's something about them. There's something in them that makes them this group I call protectors. Something that they want to help people that can't take care of themselves different than everyone else. Not everybody has that capacity to do that, Melanie. And those who serve in our nation's military today are doing that. And you know who they are? They're millennials. So you can rake the millennials all across the coals all you want to, all day. But I stand behind them because, again, as a leader, I think my responsibility is to teach them, to mentor them on not only my successes as a business person or as a writer, as a leader, but also to share my faults and to share my failures so they can learn. I think that is what real leadership is.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But in the Marines in particular, I mean, in all the armed services, I would imagine, but they don't really have a choice. I mean, in the classroom, you know, they kind of have a choice. You know, one of my students said to me, one of my seniors one year said, he asked me to go to the restroom, and he said, Miss Collette, he said, do you realize that I literally, it was especially toward the end of the year, he said, do you realize I have to ask you to go to the bathroom, and I'm enlisted, I'm going to be fighting for my country and carrying a gun in like 3 months. And I was like, dude, listen, I had to agree with him. I said, I have no argument for you. I'm like, it's the rules, man. What do you want? What do you want me to do? I said, it's the rules. I said, if it makes you feel any better, I can't go either till the bell rings.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was in for a culture shock about rule following 101 when he enlisted, but
yeah,
it's still, I think it's still emblematic of the fact that you know, as leaders, you have a responsibility. I don't care if you're in academia or in the military or in the private sector. If you're not sharing those wins and losses with those you lead, I don't think that's leadership. And I think, you know, again, you can apply that leadership model at any level in any organization. I just think that that's the real message that I'm trying to communicate is you have to be able to unsubscribe to the old adage that, oh, I walked uphill both ways in the snow to school and no one ever did this for me. And trust me, there's times when I get frustrated too, as I just got a smattering of evites and invitations electronically as my daughter is about to enter high school. And I think, man, I survived high school with a dirt bike and a class schedule, and that was it. So it's just a new generation, but you have to adapt. You have to be willing to change, and trust me, I'll adjust just like anybody. But again, that's part of leadership too, is understanding that you have to change with the times. And I think, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here. You either adapt and change, or you get left by the wayside.
It's true. No, it's absolutely true. And you know, you have to tell, and you're right about the thing about leadership. Telling your kids and telling people that you're leading about your faults are going to do more for them than telling them that you're always right. I think the best thing you can do, particularly as a teacher, is to say, I don't know. And people find that to be really surprising. If a student asks a question that you don't know, say you don't know. Don't make it up. They'll have a lot more respect for you. Say you don't know. I'm going to look into it because no one's ever asked me that before. I'm going to look into it. I'll have an answer for you next class. But if you make something up, they will lose total respect for you. It's okay not to know. No one knows everything. I have a news flash.
Yeah, that's spot on. And I think those teachers or those leaders that are willing to admit their faults are probably, in my opinion, the most impactful people in your life that you look back on and go, man, I remember, you know, that professor because they were so authentic and they shared with me, which other people don't, because they want to wear this mask of command or this mask of leadership or hide behind their position or title, and they don't really share that. And I'll be quite honest, I was probably guilty of that at certain points of my career as well. I think it's institutionally acceptable in some cases, but you learn again through age and wisdom that the really authentic people, the ones that share everything with you, are probably the most impactful.
That's true. That's true. I totally believe that. I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you what you think of things like, and you can pick whatever one you feel most comfortable answering. Things like how President Trump is doing with the VA, how we are doing with our foreign policy. If you have any thoughts on that, and you pick a country, because we seem to be, President Trump's a multitasker. So you can pick Russia, North Korea, China, wherever you want to go, the Middle East, because we seem to be having some troubles with Iran. We're having some issues with Turkey right now, which I didn't, they're part of NATO. I didn't think that they would be an issue, but apparently now they are. We're trying to get that pastor back. So how do you think that we're doing in that regard? Do you think things have improved from a policy standpoint? What do you think?
Despite all the rhetoric that you hear coming out of the Twitter accounts or the administration, I think we're doing a good job. And you don't have to agree, again, with everything President Trump, espouses on Twitter or in the media. But the policies, I think, of being strong, being forceful, and being number one. I mean, the bumper stickers on our pickup trucks don't say number one for any reason. We are number one, and we have to lead. So there's a lot of talk. I mean, I think it was great just, 2 days ago when we were, North Korea returned the bodies of 55 service members. And, in the fallout of the summit that he had with Chairman Kim, I was very happy to see that the president has surrounded himself with these great people, like Zinke in the VA. But he's also got guys like Jim Mattis, and Mike Pompeo, these sage anchor points that have really allowed him to say and do the things he wanted to do, because they bolster him on either side. And I think that's important. And what most people are calling war games off the coast of South Korea, I've been there. I've been on the peninsula, on both coasts. So I know what these things do. I think we need to continue with these to build great training experience, team building. They have tactical importance, friendships, and harmony between the soldiers and sailors and Marines that participate. And, if we just erase those, what in Korea or anywhere else around the globe, I think we need to have some further discussion on that before we just start pumping the brakes on stopping bilateral training exercises, which is what they're actually called, because we don't want to fail to be students of our history by removing, again, that forward presence. And we need to be aware of the lessons we learned from World War II and the European theater, because that U.S. presence, again, it really does allow for regional stability, free trade, and serves as an anchor point for the military machine to stay ingrained in that culture in the areas that really have a ground perspective on what's going on. And those have second and third order effects. So it provides a conduit for additional political and economic throughput to gain and maintain those relationships in those areas. And honestly, whether you're talking about the Middle East or the Pacific Rim or Europe, it has nothing to do with nation building, Melanie. It has everything to do with maintaining relations with those partner nations. And I think if we're viewed in that way, we'll really continue to enjoy the friendships that come out of that bilateral training, and also some of the costs from these nations. What I know President Trump is big on is like, hey, pay your fair share. Totally agree with that. But Americans who not participated need to understand also that it costs money to train our military, and those are investments that really pay dividends. And training in diverse cultures is really what keeps our nation's military razor sharp if and when the time calls.
Exactly. And, they're watching us. Everyone is watching us to see if there's chinks in the armor, to see if are any weaknesses that they can capitalize on. I mean, let's face it. Because, I mean, and if they see anything, and they're doing this, with cybersecurity, they're doing it everywhere. And the minute they see a weakness, they will capitalize on it. And that's the thing. That was the really scary thing, in my opinion, about President Obama, cutting the military as much as he did. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And not only cutting it, but let's tell the world about how we're cutting it. That's an awesome idea. Like, what are you doing? I just,
all of us in uniform cringed grossly at that when it was happening. And as somebody that's probably well known or at least known for who I affiliate with as, being conservative, and maybe like a loose lace Republican, because I don't have to agree with everything, but it was tough. But when President Obama was elected, none of us in the military were aghast. I was one who was personally very hopeful, and I thought it was a great thing for the nation. It was such a historic day, and I was very hopeful and very optimistic. And then ultimately, 8 years later, tragically let down.
Wow.
Because of the lack of leadership, the lack of military support that we got, not only from the top levels, but everybody in the administration just seemed to seep through the cracks. And I'm very optimistic again, not because of the party that's in charge, but because of what they're saying they're going to do for the military. So to really back that campaign promise from our Republican Party and from those in office, I want to see some images of ships being built that are going to support our Navy that's been dilapidated. I want to see these new programs coming online and really seeing those metrics of success that are going to continue on what I'm really concerned with from our military standpoint, that helps everything I do now in the private sector continue to be successful. And I think, obviously I'm biased, but that's one of the first steps, is defending our country, being patriotic, supporting our military. And I'm not talking about slapping a bumper sticker on. I'm talking about really doing something for veterans to help. And it doesn't have to be writing a big check to save the brave or a nonprofit, but donating your time, your resources, your services, just like you're doing today, is really important to putting some skin in the game. It's really, that's the easiest way I could explain it, is you have to put some skin in the game and not just, put a bumper sticker on your car and say, yeah, I support the troops. It doesn't carry water with me. You have to do more.
It's true. Nope, you're absolutely right about that. And I'm continually perplexed, frankly, by how the government can't seem to get itself together with taking care of our veterans. I don't get that. Like, I really, it's maddening to me. I'm like, I don't understand why they don't have like priority express, especially when it comes to medical care and the VA. Like, I don't get that. I don't understand why that's a problem. Like, we have computers. What's the problem? Like, I don't understand. Well,
we need a whole other episode to talk about the VA and how I could share horror stories with you, even in the year, 2018, about how bankrupt that system is, despite the multitude of employees that organization has, and the lack of communication, the misutilization of technology, and the responsiveness to our veterans when they show up at a clinic, at a hospital, asking for services. It really is. It's shocking to me, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I'll say it. I'm lucky because I pay into my own healthcare system, that I've saved for, and I don't have to go to the VA for certain services. But the veterans that are hamstrung to that system, it's heartbreaking to me. And if there's ever opportunities we can help those veterans with alternative means, or getting them help or services, that's another great way to, help our nation's military and our nation's veteran community.
It certainly is, but my thing is, like, we shouldn't have to, like that. I mean, they should. I don't understand, like, what we're thinking as a country, that once they've made the sacrifices that they've made, that there's no, like, we know who you guys are. You know what I mean? So why are we not? I don't understand why we're not making you a priority. The VA, there's a way to assess and fix that, but they need, in my opinion, they need a private industry model, not a public industry model. That's part of the problem. If they treated the VA hospitals like they treated them in the private sector industry, it would be fixed, in my opinion. Because the hospitals that don't do well would be shut down and wouldn't survive, or they'd fix them. They put the money in that needs to fix them. It's ridiculous, and the people who need to be fired would be fired. It's crazy. It's insane. It is heartbreaking. It is truly heartbreaking. I can't. When I hear that, I'm like, these people are veterans, and this is the way we're treating them. And then meanwhile, we have other people in our country that have other statuses that have done nothing, who seem to get priority treatment. I don't understand that. I have a philosophical, like, real problem with that. And it needs to be fixed. And I think, I think this next 2 years is probably going to fly by. So I really hope that this new VA secretary that we got is going to be able to do something here. Like, just the way President Trump is making some drastic changes in other areas. I'm hoping that he'll be able to really do something with the VA, because I worry about that. Because if he can't do it, we're in big trouble.
No, I agree. It's and I think it's one of those problems that's been lingering for so many decades that sometimes I'm quick to defend, where I say, hey, you need to be patient. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But these are such plaguing, persistent problems with that organization that we're pointing our finger at, that we really want to see some sort of plan forward, at least lay out the plan on, identifying the problems and then telling us what solutions you've come up with to fix the problems. And that's tough. And, I agree with, one of the people chiming in here. You can't fire government employees, but unfortunately, there has to be a system within the government where we hold these people accountable, and they shouldn't be allowed to just collect paychecks every 2 weeks and be able to get a ride on the taxpayer's dime. That's not fair to veterans, first and foremost, but it's also not fair to everybody else paying into that system.
Exactly. You can't tell somebody who calls and says, I think I have PTSD, we'll see you in a month. They could be dead the next day. Like, they don't, and it's like they don't even consider the criteria for what the person is calling about. And it's like, you can't just say, I'm sorry, you can't get an appointment for 3 months. Like, you can't do that. You just can't do that to people. And it's like, I've heard some of the horror stories, and it seems like it's like they just don't care. It's driving me crazy. We're toward the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here, Scott. How can they pick up the book? How can they get in touch with you if they want you to speak or whatever? Go.
Yeah, again, you can get online, go to Amazon, type in Echo and Ramadi, buy a copy of Echo and Ramadi on Amazon. And again, you're not just getting a great story about people and the Power to Human Connection. You're also helping veterans, because I donate a portion of the proceeds to Save the Brave from the sales. If you want to learn more about me, take some pictures of the Marines, you can visit my website at echoandramadi.com. And if you really want to make a difference and help with Save the Brave and make a donation, go online today, savethebrave.org, and you can see more about what we do, see about some of our latest events, and it's just a great way to stay connected. But I'm always happy to be on the program. I can't wait to get to Jersey and see your segment of wine country and really connect and see you again. And thanks again to all the listeners, and thanks for having me on the program.
It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show again. I appreciate it so much. I posted links to your websites in the Facey chat. I hope you guys catch it. Those of you who are listening on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio, please do catch the podcast. The information will certainly be there. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys all in the Facey chat. You completely rock. Remember, all of this is very important, because after all, it's your money. Have a great night.